I was having breakfast with a friend of mine who was a chemist, and he was going through a freezer he had, and the freezer was full of different types of drugs. He pulled out a small vial and said, I think you'll be interested in this. I said, well, what is it? He said, well, it's an African hallucinogen and it lasts 36 hours. So here I am under the influence of this very powerful hallucinogen. And I get home and I lay down, and the Ibogaine is working and working and working and working. And it's 33 hours later, and I only thought to myself, I'm exhausted, I'm going to sleep for a week, and I'm never going to take this drug again. And I got dressed and I walked out of the house, and that's when I realized that I was not in narcotic withdrawal. And I looked at this large tree in front of me, and I looked at the clouds in the sky, and I realized that for the first time in my life, I was not frightened, and perceived that my entire life had been full of fear.
Somewhere, I think it was the end of 1988 or early 89, I believe, I received a call from Mr. Howard Lotsof, who was living in Staten Island in New York City, and he claimed he had a cure for drug addiction. And he explained that somewhere in the late 60s he took this bizarre drug called Ibogaine, and after that experience he had lost his cravings for drugs, and prior to that time he had been a multi-drug user. At the time I received this call, I really didn't think very much of it. I get numerous calls from people who claim they have a cure for something or other and they want me to study it. And most of these people, I think, are really not in touch with reality, and I assume Mr. Lotsof was similar nature, and I dismissed the call, really. He called back several times, and the more I talked to him, the more intrigued I became. And I was particularly intrigued by the fact that he claimed that you took this drug once and you lost your cravings for drugs at least for several months or forever. And this sort of magic bullet notion is really unlike any pharmaceutical we have really for any disease.
Good evening, I'm Forrest Sawyer, and this is Day One. What if we could cure drug addiction with a single pill?
I'm clean. I don't have any cravings for cocaine.
But the cure itself makes you high. And government researchers wonder if it really cures anything at all. Ibogaine is a psychedelic drug that puts its users on a 3-day trip. It's illegal in the U.S., and no one knows if it really works.
It took me from 1984 to 1991 through the leadership of 3 different directors of the National Institute on Drug Abuse to finally get them to take a serious look at Ibogaine. Now, imagine that you are a doctor. You spend 12 years getting your education. You spend 15 years in the field becoming an expert. And then the last thing you're going to want to hear is some former heroin addict went and discovered the effective medication that you're looking for. So there was enormous resistance.
The Drug Enforcement Agency says Ibogaine has a high potential for use.
I don't believe that Ibogaine will be the drug that's used in the future. I think it will be used, but I, like a lot of other people, are waiting to see what the second generation drugs will turn out to be. When you're an addict and suddenly are not an addict, that's a very valuable experience. And I observed how poorly treated addicts are in our society. And I wanted to do something with my life, and the most important thing that I could perceive of doing was producing Ibogaine as an available medically approved drug. And that's what drove me.
Really blessed to be part of what brought this all together, and I just sincerely want everybody, to be, knowing how important it's been for each one of us to be here so that we can accomplish what we've done and begun to do. I'd like you to offer the closing impressions of the experience. It's been, I can't even put it into words, the experience that I've had, but I want to thank you so much for your support coming here.
This has just been an overwhelming experience to me. It's just been more than I anticipated. And what really makes it amazing is it's more than anybody anticipated. I'm literally astounded at the developments that have occurred throughout the world, and of the investigations and individual understanding and research that 100-odd young people, or principally young people, and certainly younger than I, have brought to this area. So my position over my understanding 5 years ago has completely changed. I believe that Ibogaine will be used to treat chemical dependence, and that it will be used successfully to do so. And when I say successfully, I mean that in every conceivable way, Ibogaine will benefit the individual. And whether that includes abstinence, or various stages of abstinence, or no abstinence at all, the very nature of the understanding that Ibogaine provides leads to the ability of the individual to choose the direction in their life, to understand the direction that their life has taken. And this is really the issue of slavery over freedom, and freedom over slavery. And Ibogaine is a magnificent tool, a magnificent road to freedom. I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank my wife Norma, who's kept me alive ever since I met her. She's just my heart. Thank you. I never anticipated that this particular conference in Sayulita, honoring my work and bringing together providers and facilitators from around the world, would have such an overwhelming effect. I'm possibly reaching the end of my life. I've been diagnosed with liver cancer, and I find myself rejuvenated by coming together with my friends and colleagues from around the world, honoring my work and demonstrating their own expertise. So I feel established and blessed. And just as the generation before me presented me with a landscape to follow, I presented the newer generation with a landscape and many roads to follow. So I feel that my life has been worthwhile, and I feel that I'm leaving the work in the hands of many, many good people. And I just don't know what to say. I've never been treated so well. I've never been at a conference which has offered so much knowledge and dignity and love, which is beyond the concept of a scientific conference.
Howard.